Ikinararangal ng Ateneo High School na maging panauhing tagapagsalita para sa gabing ito si Ginoong Jose Antonio P. Salvador, Jr.
Father Ramon Villarin of the Society of Jesus, Ateneo de Manila University President, Mr. Edgo, Chair of our Board of Trustees, of course, Father Raymond Benedict Hizon of the Society Jesus, who actually represents the 6th C of your mission statement, cool. Distinguished members of both the administration of the Ateneo de Manila University and the Ateneo de Manila High School, my faculty, my companions in this most chaotic vocation, fellow parents, and my dear graduates. Good afternoon. A subversive thought just crossed my mind a while ago. I figured, what if I go down on bended knees and perhaps plead the high school administration to allow me to graduate with you? But then again, maybe perhaps, if not for my unkempt hair, Mr. Bilog here, in deference to his former guidance counselor, would have probably allowed me. You see, I ended my term, actually my 9-year term as Assistant Headmaster for Student Affairs last school year. And 5 of those 9 years were shared histories spent with many of you. We took this journey together, and it feels as though I am part of this graduating batch. Because really, the honor of speaking before this distinguished batch of students is all mine. And like you, this graduation for me is a passport to our next journey, a sort of ritual of moving on to new challenges. Well, I know at the onset the term moving on is usually associated with gossip shows, as in looking at the recent Twitter feeds of Sharon. Casey has not quite moved on after a controversial breakup with Piolo. But I feel that though the circumstances between a messy celebrity breakup and a momentous and dignified ritual such as this are poles apart, the term moving on, which suggests some kind of a voyage, best captures the spirit of the occasion. It was philosopher Marcel Proust who said that the real voyage to discovery is not in seeing new landscapes, but in seeing with new eyes. So before you do move on that voyage that beckons in the nearby horizon, it is in the spirit of seeing the same things with new eyes that I want us to first look back at the past, at a voyage that we have taken together. You see, what to my mind is most humbling about being a grade school teacher, and I say this with no rancor whatsoever, is that the students' experiences of the grade school can be easily forgotten, perhaps because they happened at a time when your faculties were not yet fully developed. So today, let me be your historian and allow me in the course of my talk to narrate to you events that may already be embedded in the deep recesses of your subliminal mind and you may probably vaguely recall. So let me first take you to a homily delivered by your former chaplain at the Ateneo grade school, Father Chito Unson, who was here this morning. To my recollection, he delivered this years ago in one of those community masses, back then when you were too rambunctious to sit still during general assemblies. So now that you are of age, I guess, you may find this message rather more appropriate for grade schoolers. Hence, with Father Chito's indulgence, what I'd like to do instead is to breathe into it a fresh, new perspective where we can draw some valuable lessons that are more befitting of your age. So in Father Chito's sermon, he talked about the experience of watching movies, old school style. I say old school because, well, nowadays the movie houses are virtually empty. I suppose because the viewing public nowadays prefer other cheaper alternatives, but let's not go there anymore. Anyway, during our time, such was not the case. Movie watching was a very central social ritual. Even communal one at times, where relatives or even neighbors would participate. So it was quite commonplace for families or other closely knit groups to look forward to movie watching days. And these are often earmarked in the weekend. This occasion was usually followed from rather by some brief reception, like eating after the movie in a nearby ice cream house or restaurant with highlights of the movie dominating the dining table conversation. Anyway, we all know what usually happens at the end of every movie. So the movie theme song is played and then credits begin scrolling down the screen, bearing the names of all of the people who worked behind the scenes to help in the production of the movie. Of course, aside from the fact that the names that appear in the credits are often the lesser known individuals, such as caterers or key grips or some average Joe like the assistant to Mr. Jackman, the credits scroll down so fast that you miss out on a lot of the names. In fact, the viewer's tendency is by the time that the movie ends and the credits appear, off everyone goes to leave the movie house. On one hand, the metaphor seems to lend itself easily to a singular interpretation. The movie symbolizing our lives, your lives, the names of the people in the credits symbolizing those nameless many who have contributed to shaping us into who we are. And of course, the lesson to be learned from it is to show appreciation for these people, no matter how seemingly insignificant their roles were. However, as I said at the onset, you might find this interpretation too juvenile for your sophisticated thinking. Hence, I will propose to you another way of interpreting the metaphor. If the movie were to be likened to who you are now as a person, the fast-moving credits at the end of the movie may be seen as a representation of all of the events in your life, too countless to even enumerate, too immeasurable and too fleeting and too detailed, that the moment that they get past you, they may forever be lost. With terabytes upon terabytes of experiences that you've had in the high school, imagine spending all of those infinite hours in this campus. It's quite likely that many of these experiences of ours will be completely ignored or forgotten. However, psychologist Daniel Kahneman assures us that in each of us resides what he calls our remembering self. Our remembering self is the storyteller that takes these everyday experiences of ours and then frames them into finite but significant moments, into turning points and crossroads, and into hallmarks in our life. It is the remembering self that does not simply recall details of the past, but it also assigns meaning out of these events in our life. It is the remembering self that make common experiences or even collective experiences memories that are uniquely our own. And most important of all, it is the remembering self that is the teacher that offers us life's lessons that will help charter our course in the future. So I'd like you to continue to walk with me as I take you back to my own journey with this batch of students and parents. I will randomly pick up fragments of these seemingly uneventful moments, moments that are far removed from our notion of larger-than-life quests, and moments that appear at the onset to be deceivingly incoherent narratives. But I invite you to see them with new eyes. Let me begin. One memory that I would have would be of the 3-year-old Concepcion twins, Anton and Juancy. They were clad in their identical clothes and matching sandals, who we chanced upon in a nearby mall with their mom Chona and their dad Anton. They were, I guess, spending the weekend together minus the trappings of an elaborate outing, but essentially doing things together as one family. Another one of my memories is that of little Enzo Atanasio and his older brother, Robbie, horsing around in their designated playground as preschoolers under the desk of their mom's St. Luke's Hospital Clinic, where me and my wife, who was at her last trimester, waited for our turn for consultation. It's not hard to imagine what sort of child's play one can do in a doctor's office, and how this early exposure to the world of medicine did to lead Enzo to the same path as his mom and dads. I also see 9-year-old Kevin Maske. In the eve of the grade school annual feast of the Holy Guardian Angels, dark clouds in the September skies threatening to ruin our traditional procession was in stark contrast to the assuring voice and the cherub-like looks of this youngest member of the Ateneo Boys Choir, bearing the optimistic message, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Happy is the man who trusts in him." I also see father and son tandem, Joey and SJ San Juan, marching to the Senate alongside the rallyists from the Ateneo contingent. As a prep student back then, SJ most likely did not understand the meaning of Jericho March and was completely oblivious to the possible risks that the rally presented. Yet, from the impressionable and trusting mind of a child, he felt secure because in his mind, kung kasama si Daddy, siguro, okay to. I see Itos Ledesma, who in my fearless prediction is destined for greatness. If you know Itos to be like any bona fide artist, one who will not take things sitting down, I'll tell you why. It's because I remember early on seeing this budding musician at the Mariano Singson Hall strumming his electric guitar on stage, barefoot, and singing tunes to a clueless audience who were pitifully light years behind his unfathomable musical vocabulary. So, in mild frustration, he stops in the middle of the song, and as if to bring home a point, he lies down in peaceful protest on stage and ends the song lying down. I also see some parents. I see Dada Santiago, who I first met when I was asked to facilitate a forum on ADHD. After a spirited discourse by a multi-sectoral panel of experts about the possible pros and cons of taking ADHD medication, she reluctantly approaches the mic and with a cracking voice that failed to conceal both her fear and hopefulness, she confesses before an audience of 500 or so that her grade 3 son, Monch, will in a day have to begin his medication, partly in order to cope with the rigors of the Ateneo system. As we all know, Monch has turned out to be a fine athlete and a fine young man that we all yearned him to be. And looking back, the decision not to turn back, but to plod on despite that uncertain horizon was all worth it. I see the varsity teams, moms and dads, Diane Ramos, Cecil Aganon, Jessica Pelaez, Tina and Noel Bonoan, Rox and Donny Sevilla, and many others whose astonishing commitment to the principle of esprit de corps would put the army to shame. They made everyone in their teams, especially me, despite my dismal lack of aptitude for sports, feel that we were as much as part of their sons' teams as the rest of the other parents and coaches. I see this boy named Joyce Pakamalan. To me, he was that immigrant from another school, navigating his way through this strange demographic of the Ateneo grade school. And by many counts, Joyce had all the excuses to feel like an outsider. Anonymous, insecure, and unwelcome in this new social landscape. But his indomitable spirit, coupled by his outgoing nature, refused to lose by default. Indisputably, it did not take long before he became everyone's favorite friend. Most everyone was acquainted with this newest kid on the block, not just his classmates and teachers, but more significantly, the lowly pals in the cafeteria, the security guards, and even the janitors knew him personally and had nothing but fond words to describe this sympathetic young man who often chose to spend his leisure time in friendly conversation with them. I see the faces of the officers of our student council beaming with pride after their triumphant first venture into events organizing, the year-end band fest. The fabulous 5 members of the Rainbow Coalition, Beto Arellano, Kevin Henson, Mav Cuyugan, Randy Puno, and Riggs Ventura, who forged a pact with one another, even to stake their own personal belongings like laptops, amplifiers, drums, just for the sake of the success of this endeavor. And you know, this went down in the grade school history as the project that was built from the ground up with no capital whatsoever except for an airtight business proposal. I also see 2 of the most chivalrous behemoths of the Boy Scouting movement of the Ateneo grade school that have ever cultivated. Carlo Templo and John D. Cabantac. On any occasion, each time that the Cowans would come together, the neophyte scouts would naturally flock towards these 2 towers, literally looking up to them as their beacons of the principles of scouting. I also see the parents of the Ateneo grade school, Parents Council, or AGSPAC, as we call them, orphaned mid-year by our beloved headmaster, Father Joey Fermin, who was constrained by his rapidly diminishing health. They chose, despite this unforeseen misfortune, not to wallow in pity, but instead to continue to tirelessly and selflessly offer their support as surrogate parents to keep the community intact. I assure you, my dear graduates, that there are plentiful other collective memories of this precious batch of students and parents that speak to us of valuable life lessons. of Emil Hofileña and the volumes of books that he borrowed from the library, of Kaloy Bautista and Migo and Corina, who never fails to make sense every time she gives me her 5 cents worth, of the wholesome gang of Joe and Galo and Miguel Tan and Yesu and Jico, who I can't help but compare to my own comrades in mischief back in the day, who took to heart our CLE lessons on metanoia and are now, thank God, dutiful fathers to Rocco, to Dan, to Poch, to Diego, to Edem, and to Rami. I have revisited these old snippets of memories numerous times. And each time that I do, I'm always edified by each new meaning that it reveals to me. I have yet to really figure out what moral lessons these peripheral experiences hold, but I hope that you agree that it is hard to miss the profound lessons of impeccable optimism, daring, teamwork, trust, perseverance, faith, and community in these narratives. And so that they do not escape our consciousness, we must take this treasure trove of experiences and only with the most fundamental tool that our great mentor, Mr. Pagsanghan, reminds us teachers to equip our students with. A tool far more important than any of the 3 R's. Not reading, not writing, not arithmetic, but reflection. All we need to do is to reflect on our experiences with a discerning spirit. Because the real voyage to discovery is not in seeing new landscapes, but in seeing with new eyes. Some months ago, the parents came up with a fitting motto as they were setting up a batch 2012 FB page. The motto goes, "Walang iwanan." And, well, paradoxically, I mentioned this in the eve of the last time that we will be together, we, as one batch. But I don't think magkakaiwanan at all. Because even as you and I bid farewell to those 3, 4, or even 14 years that we have spent together in this wonderful campus, our memories become that sinew that bind us together. So in the spirit of walang iwanan, we return to those memories of ours, not just superficially traveling back to romanticize events that are long gone, but with a discerning spirit, appreciating the richly nuanced layers to the experience that you will carry with you to your next destination, memories and meanings of the moments that have defined you. So in ending, let me just say to my dear graduates of batch 2012 that it is in remembering that you carry to your next voyage your sense of who you are and what you can become. They are the vessels that will keep you afloat as you navigate the sails to your next journey. Thank you.